Hey guys, Matt, Jug 2 driver with Scale 4x4. What I'm showing you tonight is obviously two Jeeps, but there's something specific that we're going through. This Jeep was actually the power wagon prior to this Jeep body, obviously. This was my son's truck, and he really liked this truck for one particular reason, and that is because this thing is covered in lights. I've got a 5-light setup on the front. I've got rock lights all over the place. This thing's lit up like a Christmas tree. So he decided that he wanted lights on his truck, and so I asked him what body he wanted because he had been seeing this one. This one's been sitting on the shelf for a while, so he decided that he wanted this body on his truck. I actually had lights already installed on this one. When I took this body off and created the 6x6, I used the lights from this for that build. So we're going to go through and show you how to install the lights, kind of how the system works, and then we'll check back and see what it looks like. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to take these lights and put them in the body, and I'm going to show you kind of how that process goes. First, what we've got is the Axial NVS system, their night vision system. This is pretty good, all in one kit. Get the control panel, or the control module, and then several sets of lights. Can't remember, let's see, you've got headlight, tail lights, blinkers, etc. And then I've got some additional lights for the auxiliary, because I'm going to do headlights, tail lights, turn signals, and then I'm going to put a light bar up here on the top. And you'll see I've got several light bucket sets to go through everything that I need, and then I've got these light bar sets. So we're going to go through that and show you how to do it. So first things first, we're going to get the body off. Get the truck put out of the way. So let's check out the NVS system. Now I've put this system in before. It's pretty good. It's pretty straightforward. It's not overly complicated. They give you a decent diagram of what your lights are. Oops. Don't need that. So you've got auxiliary white lights, orange lights, your brake lights are your red, and then a headlight white. So you've got two sets of white lights that are 5mm, and then an orange set and a red set that are 3mm and 5mm. So your NVS system is roughly the size of an ESC. So you just have to find a good place to mount it. I believe the last time I did this, I mounted it up in the body, so I'll figure out where I'm going to do that. Control by switch, but you're going to plug it into your receiver box, and that's how it's going to control, because this will plug into your receiver, and then your leads coming out of basically this will act like your receiver, and it'll go out to the various throttle and steering. So that's how it knows when to do turn signals, brake lights, etc. Then you've got your lights. Now this draws power from your battery. This does not require a separate power source. Now you could do that if you wanted to, but for ease of setup, you get, hold on, let me get this undone. You get these Tamiya leads. Now obviously you can cut it off and do what you want with it. You can hardwire it if you wanted to, but so that's one of the first things I'm going to do is get that cleaned up so to do everything else. But so you've got various lights. So this one is going to be, which you've got a gray and black, and then an orange and gray, and that's going to tell you those are my right and left turn signal lights. So that's what those are. Then I've got, so obviously everything's color coded. Then I've got another gray and black system. This is going to be the other side of my right and left turn signal. So what you're going to end up having is you'll have one set of lights that's going to be your right, one set that's going to be your left, and so they'll lead from the center here and go out like that, and vice versa. So that's how that's going to work. This is my red and black. This is going to be my brake lights. You can see the red and black here. Then I've got my white and black, and that is going to be, or white and gray, although this is white and black. So that's going to be another, it's probably white, so it's going to be a headlight auxiliary light. I've got this is another set of auxiliary lights, but this one actually has, this has got 5 bulbs in it. So this is actually going to be my auxiliary. These are my headlights too, and then I've got 5 auxiliary lights that I can use. And then I've got an additional set of 8 auxiliary lights. So this may not get used in this particular instance, but if you had your normal KC type headlights, the round buckets, that's what you would use. I'm using the LED light bar. I'm going to use the big one, so that's what the 8 are for. This is going to be for my son, so I may try to throw as many lights on it as I can. So I'm going to go and take care of this so that it'll work on my battery setup, and then we'll get back. Alright, so I've got my adapter built, so that's going to plug in obviously to the ESC and then the battery, and then that will plug in to my head unit, which will plug in here. These obviously correspond to your lights, and you can follow the instructions here. It'll tell you auxiliary 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you've got more auxiliary lights. So if you're looking at it like this, headlight, brake light, and you've got left turn signal, right turn signal, or vice versa, I'm not exactly sure, and then your auxiliary lights, so your fog lights or your upper lights, and then you've got 5 more bays for just additional lights that you want to use. So I'm not going to put this in yet. I'm going to save this to last, because I'm going to figure out, after I've laid out my lights, where this is best suited. Now, I have done this body before with lights, so that's what you kind of see here, is where I had this already wired for lights, but then I switched bodies, took this one off, and took the lights out of this for a different truck. So first things first is I'm going to lay out my lights to see where I want them to go. So obviously headlights, I'm going to stick those in my light buckets here. Right now they're just loose fit in there. So tail lights, brake lights. So I'm going to place those where I'm going to want those to go. Now, I've got just holes drilled through here because, like I said, I had this previously done. But within this light bucket set, I'm going to go ahead and open it. And so you can see what it is, AX80045. Now in this light bucket set, you've got lots and lots of options. Obviously, you can see different types of lens colors. You got your clear and your yellow. Multitude of bucket types. You get 2 sets of those. But what I'm showing you here is these pieces right here. These are actually buckets for your tail lights. So you pop one of these off to various depths, but they're meant to fit the 5mm and the 3mm. And you'll cut a hole in the body the size you want, and then you'll take this, poke it through there, and then you have a nut that you'll thread on the back of it, and that will lock everything in place. So when I first did this, I cut myself some little pieces of round tube and glued it in there. But what I'm on this one, I'm going to use these pieces. So you'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute. So this, for instance, I'm going to use for one of my tail lights. So I've got my hole here. I'm going to take this little bucket, and I'm going to size it. Alright, so I'm going to have to make that hole bigger. So I get my reamer and just make it a little bit bigger. Alright. So I've got that in there. Take the nut. And we're going to screw that down. And I'm just basically going to get it, you know, finger tight. It doesn't have to be super tight. You just want it to stay in place. And then I'll feed my wire through there. And then there's these little caps. So what I'll do, take this little cap, stick it at the end of my bulb, and that's what's actually going to retain it. And it should snap into place. Yeah, there we go. So that's in place, and that's what's going to hold that light in. So you can see right there. And the same concept will go for, I'll do the other side shortly, but you've got similar sizes for the 3mm, so your smaller ones will do the exact same thing. So you're just going to ream you out a hole, put that piece in, put your end cap, and you've got it. So we'll go through that and we'll move on to the next step. And just so you know, in each of these light kits, these bucket sets, you're going to get enough to basically do, you know, 2 tail lights or 2 headlights and then 2 signal lights. So this is enough for me to do the tail end. But if you've got more lights or you want more of these little light buckets, you're going to have to buy more than one set. So just keep that in mind. One thing I like to do to kind of keep my wires in place is, I had these clips separately, that did not come with the kit, but I like to use aluminum tape, you know, just regular HVAC type aluminum tape, and I'll use that to kind of tape my lines down to keep them from getting tangled up in the drivetrain. So you don't have to do it, it's just something I do. Now the headlight buckets, I'm not going to use those light buckets that I use for the tail lights on this one. I'm actually going to use the aluminum tape to hold these lights in. I just like the way it fits a little more uniform, or it conforms better, I should say. And then I can, you know, bend these and tape these so that they're as out of the way as they can possibly be. But what I'll do kind of now is get an idea of, you know, how much lead wire I've got, so kind of get an idea of where I'm going to have to put the auxiliary unit, because it's going to have to be able to reach these. And so since I've done this one before, I'm most likely going to mount in the same position, which is right here. Now depending on what body you're using, you may have a better option, but that was where I did it last time and it worked fine. But not yet. We got to get the rest of the lights laid out, so we will start heading that way, and then we'll move on to the auxiliary lights. Okay, so I've got all my interior lights laid out, and as you can see, what I was talking about with the aluminum tape is I like to use it to hold the wires down. It's just what I find useful. You can use whatever you want. If you've got little clips like these, those are good too. But I've got them laid, I've got them plugged in. Now the left turn signals and the right turn signals, vice versa, they're going to go in slots 3 and 4. At this point I can't recall if 3 is left or right or 4 is left or right. So once I kind of get it set up, I'll figure that out. You do have some reversing switches, so those may work to reverse it. I can't recall, but we'll get it figured out, and then I'll show you how that works. But next what I'm going to do is start working on where my auxiliary lights are going to go. So that's going to be the light bar set here. So the top that's going to come off, we're going to mount that, and then see about running the lights where I'm going to run them through, because I'm going to have to drill a hole to carry them through the body and down. So that's what we're on to next. So for this one, my plan is to do the 8-light setup. So you've got two options on this truck, or with this kit. You've got a short one and a long one. Those are both 8. And then there's a 4 here, and then you've got a couple of just single light options. But for this one, I'm going to use the long one because I think it'll just fit better. So I'm going to use this piece along with this piece and this one here. And then to mount it to the roll cage, you're going to use these two brackets here, these long ones here. They're going to mount on the side down in here. It'll then have it hooked up there. This also has a provision, if you wanted to, you could mount another light right here on the front. This little bracket here, it's going to be like that. Your light bar will mount up here, and then if you wanted to do a single light, you could hook it there. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get these mounted, get them bolted into the side, and then we'll move on to the light itself. So there's two mounting holes on the side, one here and one here. So these are just going to bolt in just like that. So it'll look like that from the side. And it is going to require a hole be drilled into the top of the windshield here. So it's going to mount on the outside. You've already got one down here. You're going to mount one up there. Alright, so our front bracket is mounted. Next will be to put the light bucket together and line it up. So we'll put that together, get it started. This plastic is very, very flexible. Sort of very rubbery. So right now, obviously, I'm not putting in the lights yet. I'm just kind of test fitting stuff, seeing how it's all going to go together. Got the lights, and they're going to go in like so. And then, of course, the lights themselves will go in there. And this is the backing plate, which is going to be bolted in. And that's essentially what it will look like when it's mounted. It's a little on the, it's almost too flexible. I mean, that's a lot of movement, but we'll get it put together. And so I've got the light box done. I decided to use a little bit of glue because it's a little flimsy. So I glued these edges together, give it a little more rigidity. So next step is going to be to put the lights into it and then put the backing plate on. So that's what we're going to do now. Alright, the lights are installed. As you can see, it's not the cleanest of setups to make, so we'll try to hide these a little bit better once we get it mounted on there, and then figure out the best way to run the wires down through the body and into the receiver. So that's what we'll do next. Okay, so we've got all the lights installed. I've run my auxiliary lights down through here and through a small hole I've drilled in through the dash, and I'll tidy this up with some zip ties and try to hide it a little bit better, but I wanted to give you an idea of what it's going to look like underneath. So what I've done, you've got two leads that come from your AVS, your NVS unit that are going to go directly to your receiver. So you've got a steering and a throttle. The inputs from your servo and your ESC are going to go straight through the NVS. So you're going to be running through here, and then or I should say from the receiver to the NVS, and then from the NVS to your servo and your speed control. And that's what's going to control everything. And you've got a power switch for the NVS and a power switch obviously for the ESC, so you're going to want to make sure all those are on. Once they're on, you can check all your lights. There is a button right here underneath the NVS logo that is your auxiliary button. So if by some chance your auxiliary lights are not working, press that and they should work.
I've already tested this. I know they all work. So what we'll do is we'll get it tidied up a little bit, cleaned up a little bit, get things put back together, and then put the body back on, and we'll show you what it looks like with everything lit up. One thing I want to bring your attention, if you're doing this sort of setup, the 8 light kit that I bought, AX31098, it actually has a different plug on the end of the wire than what fits here. I don't know why it's different. I can't tell you. So I had to swap it out. The NVS system actually comes with a set of five bulb auxiliary light set. So what I did is I took the plug off of it and swapped it out with the 8 light. So you just want to be careful when you're ordering this AX31098. It says it works with another part number. I'm not sure what that number is, but it is not the NVS system. That is the AX24251. So you just want to double check and make sure if you're buying auxiliary lights that they have the same plug that will work with the NVS system. So my mistake, I don't know if that was just unique to this or if it's something else, but I just wanted you to know so that when you go and do your own build that you know what to expect. Alright guys, so here we are. We got the light bar mounted. Everything's basically back together. We'll show you what it looks like all lit up. One thing I want to touch on though is, if you recall, the system itself, the NVS system, comes with a 5 light auxiliary set for your upper lights here. I decided to go with an 8 light for this long bar. But since I had that 5 light set, I wanted to figure out a way to utilize. So what I decided to do in order to utilize the 5 lights was I went with the smaller 4 light setup. And then I took a single and just mounted it on the bottom. It's kind of ugly, but it utilizes all the lights. And you know, this is for my son, so the more lights the better. He'll be happy and I'll be happy. So that's what I did. I used the 4. This just mounts with a clip. This is a single light setup which would have mounted up here on the light bar. I just used a bracket that came with the kit, attached it to the back of this, and then hung this light below. It's a little bit of low hanging fruit, but you know, if it comes off, so what, no big deal. But that's what I do want to point out that kind of a quirk to the NVS system is that it comes with headlights, taillights, blink, turn signals, you know, 2 light strands, and then it comes with a 5 light strand. So one thing I want to point out that's kind of that quirk with the system is you've got 2 banks. You've got one bank of 5 and another bank of 5. This set here, this bank here, is your main set of lights. So you've got your headlights, your turn signals, your tail light, and then you've got an auxiliary here. Then you've got 5 separate auxiliary inputs here. Now, the one thing about this system is this auxiliary input here is the only one that's capable of running a light strand of more than 2 lights. At least it'll run the 5 light setup and it'll run the 8 light setup. If you plug into any one of these, your 5 light and your 8 light will not work. So these do not put out enough voltage to run a 5 light setup. They'll run the singles and the doubles. I plugged in the headlight and it worked just fine. But I have a trick for this. So as you recall, when I got the 8 light setup, the plug was wrong. It was too big. So I had to take the 5 light plug off, put it on the 8 light. What I discovered was, since I have these loose and basically raw, if I take the positive and the negative and I split them between 2 banks, so if I take the positive and put it in this bank 1, in this port 1, and I take the negative and put it in port 2, that it will run the lights. But if you combine the 2, you get enough voltage and power to run a set of a 5 light strand. So how good is that going to work? I don't know. How well will these stay plugged in since they don't have the retention clip? We'll just have to see. But I do know it works, and I'll show you later when everything's lit up that it does work. There is an auxiliary light switch. There's a button right here on the system. It's hard to see, but right under the NVS logo is a button, and that actually turns the auxiliary ports on and off. So it turns that whole bank, this whole 5 bank, and then this single one here. So if you turn that off, headlights, taillights, turn signals all work, but any other light will not work. So just wanted to show you that, let you know that that's a little quirk to the system. So if you buy multiple strands of 5 or 8 or whatever the case may be, you're going to run into that problem, is that it will not work on those unless you break it out and split it up like I do. So let's get it all back together, put everything in, and we will see how it looks.
Alright, so you've seen it installed. You've seen what it looks like going in. You've seen how the outlets work. So now we're going to power it up and show you what it looks like all lit up. So unit's already on. Every time you turn the system on, it's going to reset itself. It's going to go through a system setup. So you always transmitter first, then you turn your ESC on, and then you're going to turn the lights themselves on. Once you do that, you'll get a series of flashes. The system's checking itself out, and then turn signals will work. And so this is what you've got. This is what it looks like. Got my 8 lights set up here. Got my headlights, got my turn signals, and then I've got my 5 lights set up that I mentioned to you earlier. So I've got 4 up in this top and then a 5th light down at the bottom. Don't know how well that'll hold up. That may come off, may not. We'll just have to wait and see. Slug on my hand. Not much on the back. Just simple tail light, turn signals. So, but that's how the system looks once it's installed. It's not bad looking, in my opinion. Only thing I've got to say is this light bar setup is a little on the flimsy side. When I compare it to the lights on this one, this is much sturdier, much beefier. So if you're planning on really bashing pretty good, I would probably go with this setup. You've just got a little bit more protection. And this thing has rolled, and I use this kind of as a rock racer a little bit. These are good. Time will tell how this works, but just putting it together, it's very, very flimsy. There's not a lot of plastic here. It's still, I mean, I've even gone through and glued a bunch of it. But, time will tell. Hope you like it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.